Hey, welcome to the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. This is my SNAP data, weeks 1 to 3, part 2, continuing the journey. The static images will be on the scienceoffantasyfootball.com, so you can check out the images and stare at them and think about them like I do, and hopefully help you think about this week and lineups and all kind of decisions you will have to deal with. So in this material, I'm focusing heavy on team positional usage as groups. And what I mean is this kind of data here. So let me go through this. We have the actual metrics there, the team, the position, and the percentage usage for running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers based on the snaps that each position as a group got. And of course, the total is 100%. And so I'm going to do teams in groups of 4, and there they're listed. And what's neat about this data, and I should have done that in part 1, if you see a red coloration, that means that usage is below the league 25%, the bottom basically in the league for that position. If it's green, it's in the top 25% for that position. So you can see right away Arizona underutilizes its running backs. I'm not talking about how they score, etc., etc. We're just looking at opportunities and volume. Tight ends, 36% is average, and the wide receivers in the first 3 weeks have been above the league levels in the top group here, 42%. So you can look at Atlanta, Baltimore, and Buffalo. There's a story to be told there. And I think we can look at that story. Doesn't tell you the scoring, because I did that in part 1, so you could kind of bounce back and forth if you're interested. But it talks about how a team is using relative to itself and then versus the league. And so Atlanta running backs, tight ends, above average, not above average, in the top group. Baltimore average, above average, I shouldn't say that, below 25% at the top and above 25% at the bottom. So in the mid 50 percentile, the tight end is in a nice group there, and Baltimore doesn't use its wide receivers. I think you could say it comes tell the story that Buffalo underuses its running backs and wide receivers, overuses its tight ends. I'm talking about efficiency. So we can also look at those teams in a visual way, and the pink is the RB. The blue is the tight end levels. These are bar graphs. And the green is the wide receiver levels. And I've marked the levels that are high for the positions. So you see wide receivers, Arizona, 42 is right there on the borderline of being high, and none of the other teams hit that. Tight end wise, Atlanta and Baltimore and Buffalo really are very high versus that blue line. And the running backs, only Atlanta barely hits the high level at 28%. So you can kind of get your scale on the story. So you can look at the numbers and the colors, or you could visually compare each team, in a picture wise. And again, I'll have the static images there. So Carolina underuses underuses its tight ends. If you drafted Hayden Hurst, I don't know what to tell you. It's been a horror show for you. I'm sorry. But I think right now, doesn't mean they won't change, but historically they haven't changed. Okay, I didn't draft any Hayden Hurst at all. RBs and wide receivers are the story. Chicago, it's all about the wide receivers. Cincinnati, all about the wide receivers. Cleveland, we don't want those wide receivers. Everything else is about where they should be. So again, each team is telling its tale here. And then if you think about their yardage, think about their success, you can kind of see, is this distribution good or bad for the team, in the last 3 weeks. Dallas, Tony Pollard, and let's not utilize running backs. That's sad. Denver, let's underutilize our running backs, and that's sad. Detroit, Laporta, let's underutilize him. But they're all about those running backs, and they've got the sun god, and we're just not going to 41%. It could be much higher. Green Bay, running backs and wide receivers, they're actually doing a little bit better. Last year was all about the running backs, so they're getting more wide receivers involved, and that might mean if Christian Washington comes back, maybe he has a shot at doing something. So again, when you're doing your lineups, if you look at this, you can kind of get, let's just say, a confidence level or a concern level about the lineup decisions based on how the team might be distributing the volume. At least that's how I would look at it. Daily fantasy sports as well. Houston, sad about the running backs, wide receivers all day long. Indianapolis, let's not use our tight ends. Let's use running backs. Jacksonville, ETN's good, but let's not use him, right? And let's not push wide receivers or tight ends. Kansas City, all about the RBs and the tight ends. And probably, unsurprisingly, the wide receivers, horror show to own. So there you go. You can check that out. Chargers, RBWRs. Rams, all about the running backs. The other ones are sad. So maybe when Cup comes back. So think about it. Puka has done so well in a poor environment. That's really good for him. Vegas, giving a lot of snaps to the tight ends. Not enough to Josh Jacobs, of all people. Miami, all about those RBs and tight ends. And you would think with Tyreek Hill and Waddle, they'd be doing a lot more, and they're not for that. So that's interesting. Minnesota, wide receivers. New England, New Orleans, the Giants, tight ends are getting, Waller's getting play, but the wide receivers are not, and probably you should avoid them. So again, it could be more an avoidance. Boy, Breece Hall, let's just be sucky about how we use them. Look at 20% is an absolute joke. Philadelphia, let's just be sad about the RB. It's like Philadelphia and the Jets act like they're the same team as far as distribution. Very sad. Philly, you got to do better. Pittsburgh, nothing high and low. Seattle, tight ends, is that how you're going to push your team? With Lockett, Metcalf, and Walker, you're going to push your team with lots of tight end snaps? Sad. San Francisco, CMC runs the show. The rest, Kittle, poor Kittle. Look at that. Running backs in Tampa Bay. And look, wide receivers are sad. Tennessee and Washington, about average. So you can see the skews. You can see and judge how the team have done based on this information. Okay. Let's look at the position now. So I took all the running backs for the teams, the snaps, the usage, and you can see the extremes, highs and lows, and I graphed it for you. And San Francisco, Rams, Carolina, Indianapolis, all about those RBs. The opposite, of course, having Breece Hall, we don't need him. Buffalo, let's not use them. Arizona with Connor, forget about that. Denver, we don't need running backs. Josh Jacobs, forget about it. That's sad, folks. Again, tight ends, Buffalo, Giants, Kansas City, Vegas. So there's the highs, and then lots of lows there. There's some underperforming teams. Here they are on the ones that are trying to give their tight end snaps, and the ones probably, look at Hayden Hurst. Look at Carolina. You're talking about extra sad. Whew, extra sad. That's Kittle. Look at Kittle. This is so sad. Makes me extra sad for them. Wide receivers. Cincinnati. The Jets. They better do something with somebody. Chicago. Minnesota. The Chargers. All about the pass. Atlanta. Let's forget. Miami is down here, folks. Can you imagine that? The Rams. Of course, Cup's not there. San Francisco. Giants, Kansas City, probably not a surprise, but the Giants, yeah, not a surprise. Frisco, there's some surprises. I think we'll see some changes. But anyway, there is the static images here. And boy, I would not want to try to guess each week which Kansas City guys involved. I like the Cincinnati group, and that's why I drafted Boyd. And he's going to get some play. The Jets, surprisingly, they got snaps. They just don't score, and they have a sucky quarterback. But Chicago gets some activity. Minnesota, Jefferson, Osborne, I like that. Chargers. So that's why Palmer was on everybody's radar. Philly, everybody's radar. So some of the drafts and things we did, regardless of whether people told you or not, was based on this kind of historical usage here. And we're just seeing how it's all going. So anyway, I'll have this. This is part 2. You can just jauntily go through this and help you break some ties and flexes and maybe some dig deep for some of your plays here, your stashes. Okay, we'll have part 3 coming up. Woo woo.